Hey, everybody, it is episode 364 of the Wrestle Talk podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight. You know what? We got to get things started. Hit that music.
Fans, and welcome to the Wrestle Talk podcast. For the next 2 hours, we will bring you the latest pro wrestling news, in-depth analysis of all your favorite promotions from across the globe, and much, much more. We will also bring you exclusive interviews with the greatest professional wrestling personalities on the local, national, and international levels. If you want to follow the Wrestle Talk podcast, check us out online at www.wrestletalkpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And now, it's time for the reigning, defending, undisputed leader in pro wrestling podcast, the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
What's up, Renee?
¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? Loyal members of the Wrestle Talk family, Big Sexy 364, baby, ready to knock another one out of the park. How the hell are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself? Chiefs ran into a little problem this week, so hopefully they can get that straightened out.
Well, we're going to get into that during the shoot and shout segment. I promise you that. But what I can tell you is I am sharper than a number 2 pencil on test day, and I'm more official than a referee with a golden whistle. How you like that?
I like it. I like it. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a good show. I'm here until Maestro's on his way. I don't know where Maestro. I think stopped by somewhere on the way home. He forgot about So
well, the Maestro's a busy man.
Yeah, he was at Dynamo this past week. He was doing a little commentating with Luke, so it was a good show.
Dude, I can't wait to talk about the Dynamo show. I was at a show this weekend. There was also DWF a couple of miles down the road from my house. So we're going to cover all that during tonight's edition of the Wrestle Talk podcast. But guess what? We're not selfish SOBs here on the WTP. If you got the gusto, give us a shout, and we will send you a link and you can actually join us, because here in a few minutes, we're going to get into the high spot segment where anybody in the pro wrestling universe is welcome to join us as long as you got a hot take. Right, Big Sexy?
That's right. And we got some news coming out of St. Louis yesterday, so we got to talk. That's going to be definitely high spot.
Dude, it's going to be a great one. Again, guys, whether you're watching us on Periscope via Twitter, the YouTube channel, the Facebook channel, it doesn't matter. Just let us know that you got a hot take. One of us will shoot you a link, and we'll go ahead and bring you on. If we do bring you on, we just ask if you have a decent pair of headphones, if you got a Wi-Fi connection and a quiet room, that's pretty much all you need. Now, before we move on and do
or an Ethernet cable.
Preferably. Running joke here, I'm always giving the guys a hard time about connectivity, and when they listen to me, this is the presentation that you guys get. And when they don't, well, it's like you guys got Boost Mobile. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Well, guess what, man? Before we go any further, let's take care of some business. As you know, Big Sexy, we would be who we are without the members of the Wrestle Talk family, but also all the incredible sponsors of the Wrestle Talk podcast, including Everything Combat, Kincaid, Esports Bar KC, Interstate 70 Sports Media, Royal Mills Transportation, Painter's Dream Production, Rathbun Engraving, home of the Wrestle Talk podcast mug, and of course, our friends over at the Premier Fantasy Wrestling Promotion, the FWWC. With all that said, I hope you got your flag ready, Big Sexy.
Let me grab it. It's right over here. Got it.
Because you know what we do about this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask everybody to respectfully remove their caps, place their hands over their hearts as we pay homage to the greatest country on God's green earth. That's right, amigos. That's America, damn it. Sing along.
Oh, say, can you feel
missed you.
I'll make up for it now. For the land of the free.
Oh, that always brings a tear to my eye. I don't know why, man. It just always brings that tear to your eye.
And like Joey always says, man, I thought he was going to get it that time. I keep waiting for him to get it. He's like, I'm going to make it up for you guys now. And he never does it. Damn you, Carl Lewis.
Quick shout out to Sonny Money Mayo. He's kind of sick in bed, so he's listening to the Wrestle Talk podcast. I just saw the comment from him. So get better, Money.
You know, the Wrestle Talk podcast is recommended by 9 out of 10 therapists, right? Are you aware of this?
My therapist brought it up to me, and I didn't even know she knew anything about wrestling. So
really? I just made that up. I didn't know that really happened. No doubt about it. Well, guys, you know what time it is. We want to talk professional wrestling with you. So go ahead and send us a message. We'll bring you on the broadcast. Just make sure, like I said, that you have a strong pro wrestling take. Big Sexy, are you ready for tonight's edition of the Wrestle Talk Podcast High Spot segment?
Let's do it.
Let's hit it, baby, courtesy of our homie, DJ Money.
Mic check. Yeah. All right. Wrestle Talk Podcast. DJ Money. Yeah. Let's go. Welcome to High Spots, where we pop news like lamb chops. We dog shop, coming through the screens of a laptop. And non-stop like I want to speak to the blacktop. We hit hard like chair shots and backdrops. On the clock flash, look like a belly flop that ass on. We up the scene while they stay slow. Wrestle Talk Podcast, now they know we about to start the show.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, our intro to the world-famous Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Hey, before we go any further,
segment. What's up, bro?
I see. Is that an ET figure on your?
Bro, I got it. You know what? We could do a whole show on the stuff I got in here. Okay, so I'll answer your ET question. Yes. But this is what I really want to bring your attention to, bro. I got the Yoshi cap on. You know why? Because I heard rumors that Chris Pratt is going to be playing Super Mario in the upcoming Super Mario movie.
Oh, I didn't even realize they were going to redo the Super Mario.
Yep, and Seth Rogen is playing Bowser.
Oh,
his voice. I think it's an animated movie, bro, but I'm very excited.
That's cool. We all like we all grew up on Super Mario, so.
Dude, absolutely. You know what we grew up on?
What's up, Dad?
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, the Maestro isn't here yet. He'll be here about 15 after the hour. But for now, we're going to go ahead and kick off the High Spot segment. And I have the first topic for tonight's High Spot segment, something that is going to be near and dear to your heart, Big Sexy. And that is the huge news that we here in the Midwest, because the St. Louis people tend to be a little selfish. You want to call yourselves the gateway to the West. You want to brag about having the best football team. Never mind. Let's skip over that one. You guys, okay. Well, you brought up the Chiefs earlier, so it's fair game, right?
Yeah, but at least we're not the Royals, so.
Oh, not a baseball guy, thank goodness. Shout out to Rough Cut in the house, the Hall of Famer, the one and only Rough Cut Rick Ruby. We love you, bro. Big Sexy. I know this is St. Louis-based news, but like I said, this is truly a Midwest event with WWE announcing its first pay-per-view in our region in quite some time. And for those that don't know, if you guys don't like spoilers, cover your ears. Big Sexy, can you tell the folks what's happening in January?
It was reported on yesterday by STL Today, which is the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, that the Royal Rumble is going to be taking place at the America's Center, or America Center at the Dome in America Center is the official name of it. Sorry, it's gone through so many names. Where the Rams used to play, where the Battle Hawks played. they're expecting at least 40,000. They can configure the arena. It's probably could hold close to 60,000, depending on how they set it up. I don't know how they're going to set it up, but let me tell you, I know I'm tagged into the St. Louis wrestling community, the Midwest wrestling community, but there was a lot of talk about people wanting to get tickets. I've got one of my best friends is going to take his son to his first WWE event. My nephew might be going to his first WWE event. Everyone is like, they want to be there. So it's going to be a big thing. I was kidding around with somebody. I'm like, man, if I end up getting tickets and going, I'm going to spend half the night shaking hands and visiting people because everyone's going to be there. And
dude, everyone is going to be there.
And it's on a Saturday night. So
it is. And I will tell you right now, as of this point, Wrestle Talk Podcast is officially beginning to plan a trip, which will combine everything that we do, the watch parties, the fantasy group, the podcast, everything all into one. We're thinking about taking a big old caravan out there. So if you're interested, let me know. And if there's enough of us that are game, we might even actually get a suite at the arena. So if you're thinking about spending money on floor seats, maybe save it. Let's coordinate, because we could potentially have our very own box, which would be just too sweet, baby. If you ask me,
yeah, it's gonna be an awesome time because just apparently we were supposed to have the 2021 Royal Rumble at the Dome, but COVID happened, so they kind of had to. They were at the Performance Center, so
that was a no-go.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. It seems like WWE is going to do it up. I mean, a Saturday night in downtown St. Louis. I mean,
dude, and I've gone to St. Louis just to like kick it with the fam, and we had an absolutely wonderful time. I don't see why we couldn't do this again with just way more people. We could potentially bring together just from outside of St. Louis. We could potentially be bringing anywhere from 15 to 25 people. I mean, that's a nice little group.
I was going to say, maybe even Joey will come up.
Maybe, because I was supposed to be in Baltimore next month, and due to some family health issues, I won't be there. So just stay locked into the Wrestle Talk Podcast, guys. We'll keep you posted. We'll eventually create an event page. If you want to join in and meet us there, you can absolutely do that. I know that the suite idea is limited to a handful of people because the space is limited. But if opportunities open up for you guys to join us and kick it with us and watch the show with us, well, we'll absolutely be letting you guys know.
We'll have to get some T-Ravs too.
Oh, dude. No, on our way there, while we're there, and for the ride home. I'm going to be constipated like a mug, and I don't even care.
I might have to trade you some T-Rav, like some orders of T-Ravs for some Joe's Barbecue.
Well, here's what you don't know, bro. We got an Emos here now.
Oh, do you?
So you ain't my only plug. I mean, you're one of my plugs, but I got some more plugs. I'm just letting you know. I'm moving on up to the ravioli in the sky.
When did they put Emos in there?
We got 2 Emos. There's one on Rainbow. It's been up for about 8 months, and then the one before that went up about 16 months ago. Nice. I think the Kansas City people will assuredly be correcting me about how long they've been around. But they're here, dang it, and that's what matters. So anyway, enough about food, because we knew we were going to end up here, Big Sexy. That's just how it goes with you.
Well, yeah, I mean.
No, but seriously, bro, NWA, obviously all the indie stuff, Ring of Honor about a year ago, and now a Royal Rumble. Is it fair to say that St. Louis is once again staking a claim as the pro wrestling capital of the world? Because some would argue that at one point, St. Louis was the pro wrestling capital of the United States of America. What do you think?
It was with the original Wrestling at the Chase, which we'll get into with obviously our the guests tonight. So I mean, it's been a great time for wrestling in St. Louis. We got so many great promotions in the St. Louis area. We've got, I mean, even when you were talking about Kansas City's popping up with a bunch of promotions.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So you guys had Dynamo, right? So out east, out west, we had XWE Shockwave, which I was fortunate enough to be on commentary for with my man Balasong. First time young guy, real good-looking kid, lots of energy, did an awesome job on color. And as you mentioned before, I think the ring announce gig that Sonny Money did took so much out of him that he's still recovering now. I told him he should have drank some Pedialyte because that ring announce gig, I know you can talk about this, Big Sexy, is not an easy gig, especially because things change so often throughout the process of a show, bro. We all know that during a pro wrestling show, there's so many last minute changes, and usually the last person to find out, and also the most important, is the ring announcer.
Right. That's true, because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had people come out to my table and be like, okay, we got to change. We're changing this, we're changing this up. This is how we're going to do things. We're going to flip flop matches, because of things happen. But I mean, ring announcing, people think it's like super simple, but it's really not, because you're kind of in control of the crowd. You're the one that's guiding the show. You're the one that keeps everything. You try to be entertaining, but then you don't try to overpower the wrestlers. So the wrestlers are the thing, but you still have to entertain. So,
well, you're absolutely right. And I got to give a shout out to Dr. Drew Abbenhouse, one of the best ring announcers in the business in our area. Also, Ben Simon, another one of the very best ring announcers in our area. Chris the Voice over here on the Kansas side. Just truly a beautiful thing, man. And
Luke Robert, you can't forget Luke Roberts.
Of course, Skywalker, man. But we put him over way too often. So
that is true.
And
I'm looking at the comments going back to the Royal Rumble thing. A.W. Albro put in, let all 30 men eliminate Stan Kroenke together. I mean, I know. We're
Oh my gosh. Oh, I also did want to give a big shout out, going back to the indie thing, to our friends over at Dynamic Wrestling Federation. They had their very first show over the weekend on Saturday, Big Sexy. And all the way out in St. Louis, you were hearing that they had a pretty darn good showing. So obviously, we don't have enough time to go through every promotion that we're friends with, that we support. But at least this past weekend, we wanted to highlight those three because they're supporters of the show. And the DWF guys were just on with us a couple of weeks ago.
Who won I missed it. Who won the DWF title?
The one and only, the Monarch, Jeremy Wyatt.
Of course. Why? He was probably trending 5-4 on Bovada. So I mean,
well, there's no question. But there was some very stiff competition. There was Red Wing. There was Devin Thomas. There was a lot of great guys on that card. And you know what, bro? Another promotion in our area is not a bad thing as long as they're doing things the right way. Because we've all been around those promotions that are kind of on the fringe. And then you get around the Dynamos, the SICWs, you get around the NWAs and the XWEs and the KCXWs and the Journey Pros, and you go, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing to see. I'm appreciative.
Didn't Cape run a show too? CCW ran a show? I think they ran some birthday show or something.
Oh, you know what? And I'm a big old knucklehead because you're absolutely out. Shout out to our boy Jason Wells down there, Brandon Barbwire, and El Diablo, who's neither here nor there, but I like that guy.
Rumor has it we might have a CCW guy coming up here in the next couple of weeks, so
that could be fun.
A little tease there.
Yeah, well, who says that promotions can't work together with talent, man? I've never believed that. You just got to have the right people in charge that can kind of leave their ego at the door, and that's how we grow professional wrestling, ladies and gentlemen, not by hating on each other. Would you agree with that, Big Sexy?
I would agree. We just all got to get together. We might not all do the exact same thing, but we're kind of do the same thing. We're there to entertain the fan. We're there to make people forget their troubles, because this has been such a tough year and a half. It's going to go on 2 years.
No question.
It's been, if we can make people forget what's going on for 2, 3, 4, 4 hours, just, have a drink, have some snacks, just watch some good wrestling. And sometimes some of the better wrestling lately has been from the independent scene. I
agree wholeheartedly.
And also, I forgot Friday Night Anarchy, St. Louis Anarchy was running. So, this was a big weekend for indies in the Missouri area. So.
Yeah, and even so, I'm sure we left one off because we're so fortunate. Now, we're not as lucky as Haas and those guys out on the Eastern Panhandle where they got 3 shows every single weekend without fail. They're a little bit more spoiled than we are, but we're getting better. And I think that's why it's so important for us to work together, because we're always going to be a little hamstrung compared to, you got Baltimore, Boston, New York, New Jersey. You've got all these huge cities all within like a 300-mile radius of each other, bro. Like, it's hard for us to compete with something like that.
And then this weekend, Friday night is WrestleMax STO.
Shout out to KLD.
And Sunday is Glory Pro.
Oh my gosh, bro. Killing the game, baby. I love it. All right, well, let me switch gears on you real quick.
And just to say, at WrestleMax, Minoru Suzuki's supposed to be there. So
wow, bro. Absolutely love that.
I believe he's taking on Calvin Tankman. So
that's going to be ugly, especially if anybody who saw Rampage last week, boy, them boys know how to throw down Suzuki and the Murder Hawk and all those guys. If you like that hard-hitting, old-school type of wrestling, like a Harley Race, like it really looks like it hurts, Suzuki and the guys over at WrestleMax are doing a great job of bringing that kind of talent in. But I do want to switch gears, and as always, Big Sexy, the transition, the segue, you basically laid it out perfectly. And it's kind of a question for those who actually pay attention, not just for fans who watch on the surface. And I am talking big companies here. And I was watching a documentary about Harley, and they obviously bringing up like some of the toughest guys in pro wrestling history. You know, Haku came up and a few others, right? And I started to think to myself, based on what we're watching on television right now, who are the most credible badasses in wrestling? And immediately 2 names came to my mind. Not only like backstage stuff, but like when you see them, you know all hell's about to break loose. Now, disclaimer, I kind of left Brock Lesnar off of my list. I kind of left Goldberg off of my list.
We're going to bring up Goldberg when Jeremy gets here. So.
Okay, we'll get there. I like it. But I left all those guys off my list because I think some of those are very, very obvious. But I'm going to throw 2 names at you. I want you to tell me what you think. And then as you tell me what you think, I want you to kind of think of your own, Rodell, and tell me who you think are the 2 most credible badasses in wrestling. 1 guy, 1 girl. Are you down?
I can try. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, and just as an FYI, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are wondering, we do have our first featured guest of the night scheduled to join us in a little bit under 10 minutes. That's right, ladies and germs. Very, very proud to have this man on. Ed Wheatley's going to be joining us. You guys know him as a film producer, a historian. He's written countless books, and we're going to get into all that with him here in just a matter of moments. Here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast, episode 364.
Speaking of wrestling at the Chase.
Indeed, yeah. If anybody knows about wrestling at the Chase, it's him and Herb, and we have both of them on the show tonight, man. You gotta love it.
Old school time.
Old school time. Okay, so let me give you my names, and then you tell me what you think about my names, and then you give me yours. Cool?
Okay.
All right. For the men, I'm gonna say Miro, formerly known as Rusev. When I see Miro, I feel like the atmosphere changes. Whether he's fighting Ricky Starks or he's fighting Darby Allin or Fuego de Sol or Sammy Guevara, I love the intensity that he brings to the sport. Is he the clearest on the microphone? Is he the easiest to understand? No. But I don't have to understand what he's saying to understand that this guy means business, and he doesn't lay off of it.
And he can kick your ass.
And his wife is extremely flexible, as he continues to remind us. But what I'm saying is, dude, I love guys like that and girls like that, and I just don't feel like we see enough of it. I'm not saying that the sport is off, but people are leaning more towards characters that are like appealing to the masses, that are likable, even if they're meant to be the bad guy. Miro, I should say, is just there to basically perpetually whoop ass. And I like that about him because he doesn't need a lot of bells and whistles to get his point across. And he legitimately just seems like an old school badass dude that you want to fight. And on the other side, from the female perspective, I've got to give it to Shayna Baszler. Especially considering what she did to Nia Jax with the arm recently, then she did it to Eva Marie. These are 2 people that when I see them walk to the ring, I know this isn't going to be a fun, entertaining pro wrestling match. This is going to be an ass-kicking contest, just like when you see Minoru Suzuki come down to the ring. Just like when you see Moxley come down to the ring. I really do wish we had more of these types of personas, because these are the type of people that you look at and you go, whoa, I wonder if he or she's really like that off camera, right? And it's a beautiful thing to watch because I think it continues to lend credibility to the sport, where in many cases, some of the other shenanigans that are happening in the current state of pro wrestling take away from the believability. So I love what they bring, that energy and that intensity. By my book, and I know I could have gone with some easy names like Brock Goldberg or what have you, but for me, Big Sexy, the two most credible badasses in wrestling right now are Miro and Shayna Baszler. That's my take. What do you think?
I agree with Shayna. I mean, when Shayna came in, she was an ass kicker. She, when she came into NXT, she like just literally ran through everybody and beat people. When she got called up, she kind of lost that little bit of an edge to her. I mean, that's probably writing and storylines, but these last couple of weeks where she was like friends with Nia and then did that, but because she kind of had that look that she didn't want to do it, but this week she had no problem destroying Eva Marie's arm, so I'm hoping this is going in a great way. I kind of agree with Miro. I mean, I've never been the biggest Miro fan, but he's for his lack of able to talk and not being so coherent, he can deliver a message. So I think
it carries, bro.
Right. Yeah, I agree. All
right. So now that you've given your analysis on mine, with the couple of minutes we have left here before we have our first featured guest, who would your two be?
Oh,
that's a toughie.
Yeah. I think the person I wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley for the guys is Tommaso Ciampa.
There's another one. Hey, WLW's very own Tommaso Ciampa.
I mean,
how about that?
Ciampa looks like he will chew you up, spit you out, and then chew you up and spit you out a second time. I mean, he's got those eyes too that just kind of like, and I kind of like him carrying the NXT 2.0 banner temporarily, because it's kind of a good transition to the new people.
Which, by the way, they got some great young talent down there, and it's not just Braun Breaker.
Right. No, I mean, Braun Breaker hasn't been wrestling that long.
Right.
For those that don't, Braun Breaker is Rick Steiner's son, and you can kind of tell by the way it's in the eyes. You can tell in the eyes, but yeah, but I'm not quite sure I like the color of everything.
Okay.
The whole the color scheme kind of makes me look like I'm tripping acid. So
what's that a bad thing? No, I'm just kidding. Taking it back to the 70s, bro.
But for females, I'm trying to think.
Let me buy you some time very quickly here. Whenever you saw King Kong Brody, whenever you saw Harley race and you were in the stands, you take a slight step back because you're afraid that these guys might actually be the persona they portray. I guess what I'm getting at with this whole topic is I think we need more of it. We need more of those people who look like they would legitimately kick your ass in a back alley the way that you said it. And they're there because people will, some of the older crowds, some of the OGs of the sport will say, "Oh, wrestling's soft now. It's not what it used to be." Well, yes and no. You just have to know where to look because there are totally some legit badasses out there. And just because Big E Langston comes out and does the gyration and the twerking doesn't mean that he wouldn't be one of those guys. It's just his character doesn't necessarily lend itself to that, which is where I think the problem is. Because you take a Big E and make him a serious character, then you have a Bobby Lashley type character.
Right. And
which I'm very impressed by since he got serious and stopped all the nonsense. He's been very good.
You don't need two Bobby Lashleys. You just need Big E to turn it on when he needs to turn it on. So he needs to turn on the serious whenever he's But you know what? As a female, I think someone I wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley, and she's kind of veered off course from what she was too, is Rhea Ripley.
Very, very good. Well, you happen to agree with one of our listeners here tonight who also brought it up here. We got a Drew McIntyre and Rhea Ripley. But, yeah, Rhea, when she's doing her thing and not teaming with Nikki Ash, she's also a very, very credible, serious competitor that when they enter the room, you know that they enter the room. They have what many people would call an aura of intensity. And I think we need more of that in the sport, Big Sexy.
And also probably another person would be Jade Cargill from AEW. I think she's a legit. Britt Baker gets all of the props,
the accolades, all the props.
Which
well deserved,
very well deserved. She's got that DMD character perfectly down,
Right.
So,
and a quick comment here from our boy Rough Cut Rick Ruby. He says, kind of hard to look like a badass when you have a kaleidoscope light shining at you during the 2.0. Yo, he's been on a rampage ever since NXT debuted their no look. Maybe we'll have him on in the second hour briefly so he can really go in, or maybe even during the shoot and shout segment. But I would be remiss, Big Sexy, if we didn't transition, because we do have a special guest waiting. But before we get there, let's go ahead and bring in a guy that is near and dear to my heart. He's also the proprietor of the I-70 Sports Media Empire. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our prestigious and beloved co-hosts right here on the Wrestle Talk podcast.
And
the one and only, don't interrupt the introduction. The one and only, the Maestro, Jeremy Cobb. Also,
you forgot to mention he's Bill Goldberg's biggest fan.
The president of the Bill Goldberg fan club. Ladies and gentlemen. All right, Big Sexy, are you hanging with us, bro? Or are you going to catch the rest of the show?
I'm about to head out. I'm heading over to a friend's house to watch the Cardinals.
Rest of the podcast. Yes, we know. Yes.
Rest of the podcast. Rest of the Cardinal game. So, Maestro, how are you doing? We can't hear you.
Yeah, he's going to unmute himself. No worries. All right, take it easy, Big Sexy. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of the show, brother.
It was good hanging with you. I hope we get to see you when you come to St. Louis. So,
hey, man, God willing, we'll see you there in January, brother.
All
Adios.
right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Maestro, how are we doing, buddy? You got your audio situation situated? Not yet, my guy. Nothing yet. Well, listen, I'm going to go ahead. Hey, shout out to Rick Maverick. We're going to give you a second to get that sorted out. Rick Maverick, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you, my guy. Also, Rough Cut Rick Ruby, Susie Haas, Aaron Wallace, John, Sonny Mayo, Luchador de Kansas City, and I got a couple of more that I can't look up anymore. But long story short, thank you guys so much for supporting us today during episode 364 of the Wrestle Talk podcast. And by the way, we do have some news coming next week concerning the host lineup. Joe's got some big news for us concerning the Wrestle Talk podcast. So hopefully we'll have the originator, the creator, the original voice of the Wrestle Talk podcast with us next week, so you can kind of give everybody an update of what's going on with him. I will tell you guys that he's working on Tuesday nights now, so it's made it rather difficult for him to join us. But he's going to bring you guys a full-fledged update next week on what his status is, because I know a lot of people have been asking. So with that said, let's go ahead and try to see if we can bring the Maestro back in. Maestro, how you doing audio-wise, my guy? Yeah, baby, let's go!
Yeah. Let's go!
The crowd goes wild!
Thank you.
Brother, I'm going to give you a quick second to tell us how you've been, because the man of the hour is waiting, and we're 4 minutes behind schedule already. So you doing good, bro? And are you ready to get into that introduction? Because I'm going to let you lead it.
Awesome. I always love doing the intros. I'm doing great. Had a blast Saturday night commentating for Dynamo Pro Wrestling Show at Concordia Turners. Oh, my gosh. It was an absolutely great time. Amazing people in that company, and I look forward to getting to do it again. But, hell, I'm doing great. How about you, Night Owl?
Dude, hey, listen, like I told my man Big Sexy, I'm sharper than a number 2 pencil on test day, and I'm more official than a referee with a golden whistle.
Oh,
it's just my fantasies. Yeah, that's right. My fantasy game is not doing very well. So we'll talk about that later, though. That's a whole nother podcast. Absolutely. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor, brother. Why don't you go ahead and do the appropriate and respectful introduction for our first featured guest of the evening, the one and only Ed Wheatley. Take it away, Maestro.
All righty. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman has received many recognitions for the books he's written. He was recognized by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch themselves in 2020 for writing one of the top 25 books of the year. He is also a member of the St. Louis Browns historical fan group, of which I am a part of as well, and it's a great pleasure. But he has written a new book, which we'll talk about tonight, titled Wrestling at the Chase. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure in the Night Owls to welcome to the Wrestle Talk podcast, Ed Wheatley.
Glad to be here, guys. Looking forward to it. A lot to talk
How you
about.
doing, Ed? It's great seeing you.
Yeah, doing well. I mean, the book just came out this weekend. Many events planned, many wrestling events, book signing events. It's those 4 words, wrestling at the chase, instantaneous, bring a smile and a memory to everyone, in town. It's just, it was, you talked about in the previous segment, I was sitting there watching, these wrestlers with an aura. There were none better than those who appeared on Wrestling at the Chase.
Absolutely. It was considered basically kind of like how Lambert Airport's considered, the big hub of airports in the Midwest. Wrestling at the Chase was considered the wrestling hub, you didn't really make it until you were in St. Louis.
Well, I mean, yeah, so many of them, and I have the introduction in the book from all the, the great wrestlers, and they all said, you had to go to St. Louis. You had to get on Wrestling at the Chase. I mean, it wasn't just the Wrestling at the Chase, because generally the weekend before, Kiel Auditorium was sold out. 19,000 screaming fans at events regularly. St. Louis was, for 30 years, the wrestling capital of the world. This wasn't just a regional shtick. I mean, with Sam Muchnick and how he ran the NWA, and it all came out of St. Louis, they all knew this was the place to be. And that's the beauty of this book, this history that, was able to bring back these special times, these special moments.
Absolutely. Now, I think the first thing I really want to ask about your new book, what really got you into writing this book? Now, you're an author, you're a best-selling author. You've done plenty of publications on wrestling and on sports in general, but what in particular? Because it's not the first book written about Wrestling at the Chase, but what makes this one different, and what drew you into wanting to do this?
Well, really, I've written pretty many baseball books. I've made pretty many baseball films for PBS, and we've had very much success there. And as you mentioned, Larry Matysek, the longtime great announcer of Wrestling at the Chase, he had written a book early 2000s about Wrestling at the Chase was the title, and it was his little stories and memories. And, I've won a lot of awards. The Browns book was the best book published in 2017. The recent one, as you said, was one of the top 25 of 2020. And I do a style like a coffee table book. They're big, and I load these things up with pictures. I mean, you can see, all these little as I flip through. I mean, I'll have 400 or 500, 700 pictures going and telling the story. Well, Larry Matysek always wanted to do a coffee table book, but as you know, he got sick and had this illness, and it never happened. So I had just wrapped up my last book and a film, and Larry Matysek, his wife, Herb Simmons, came to me talking about Larry always wanted this kind of book. And I started thinking about it. I talked to Bob Costas, a friend of mine, as you know, he had some involvement. And I talked to the Gargiola family, the Muchnick family, Larry's wife and family. And it was like, everybody was, would you please do it? And, as you got into it, in our society right now, wrestling is big, of course, but we also need happy thoughts. And, like I said a moment ago, those 4 words, Wrestling at the Chase, immediately bring happy thoughts to people. I mean, it was a simpler time, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s when it was on, and, it came on in 1959. And, this was a time when you had one television set in your house, a big old wooden box with a real tiny screen.
Console TVs.
Right. And you had the rabbit ears on top. Some people put aluminum foil between them. But because you had only one TV in a house, it was a place of congregating and bonding around one special show. You got to remember, before Channel 11 came on in St. Louis, this one of the greatest independent stations in the country, there was only 3 channels. So there wasn't much to watch. And here came this show. And, you guys talked about in the previous segment, an aura. I mean, you're talking to guys like Lou Thesz, Pat O'Connor, Dick the Bruiser, Cowboy Bob Ellis. And then along comes, Ric Flair, Harley Race, King Kong Brody. And then, eventually you had the Rock's dad, Rocky Johnson, and, even, all of them, they were there. It was the place to be seen. And, and so many people lent these stories. They brought memorabilia. It was, you had to quick go to, kids complained. We had to go to early church so my mom and dad and grandma could get back to see Wrestling the Chase when it was re-aired on Sunday morning. I never get to sleep late, but it's those memories and very good wrestling. These people, who they were, when they were on the show, they were the tops in the country, came to St. Louis. And, it's just a great memory. And, many people say what we have, that Vince McMahon took off as Sam Muchnick retired and cable TV came in and evolved with the video game atmosphere and pay-per-view. You would never have had that had Sam Muchnick not built this base.
Without a doubt, Sam Muchnick was a pioneer in the wrestling industry. Mm-hmm. Now, you, as well as Herb and myself, were all at the recent NWA 73 show, which was basically the first wrestling event at the Chase in about 30 something odd years.
That's correct.
For you, and I know I'll probably ask this to Herb later on in this evening, but for you to be back in that ballroom and at the same table you sat at was the original ring bell that was used at Wrestling at the Chase. We've been talking about our auras all, evening. And
I should have into my office. It's downstairs. I still have it.
What was it for you? For me, it was a feeling like no other, because I never did get to originally experience Wrestling at the Chase. I'm 26. So by then, the St. Louis Wrestling Club had folded. But for you, what was it like being back in that ballroom with the old school setting, the old school style, and on top of that, just so many greats from the era of Wrestling at the Chase being in attendance?
Well, I think first of all, the bell was the thing. I mean, when I had it both days at the Fan Fest and then I had it there, Saturday night and Sunday night, everybody wanted to ring it. But, first of all, it's got that magical tone that immediately, kind of like a Pavlov's dog thing, you think Wrestling at the Chase when you hear it, because it's such a unique ring. And, what I thought as I was there, and, I have been to many, many social gatherings, dinners, and, Albert Pujols' big event every year, which is held in the Coruscant room there, the same room for the Wrestling at Chase. So, I've been there, in tuxedos and things, and that took me back. Lou Thesz, Pat O'Connor, all these wrestlers talked about, in the late 50s, the 60s, they would be in kind of like dank arenas or cow palaces. And then you came to the Coruscant room of the Chase Park Plaza to wrestle under these fabulous chandeliers. Beautiful. Wrestling, where, the next night there would be the biggest social ball in town. And that's what I think, we talked about this in the book. The Chase was, its motto was the Chase was the place to be. And, it had one of the top nightclubs in America, the Chase Club, and Frank Sinatra, Rosemary Clooney, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Nat King Cole. They would all play there, of course. But the hottest ticket was not to Frank Sinatra. It was to Wrestling at the Chase. And that's what, people went after. It was, and you would call your girlfriend and say, I got tickets to the Chase, get ready. And people came all dressed up. He had women in evening gloves and evening gowns and men all dressed up in suits. And she might think she's going to see Frank Sinatra, but no, they went and sat ringside. She may get a little spray of sweat or spit, but that was the beauty of it all. It was the thing that made this must-see TV. We talked about in the 80s and the 90s, NBC, Seinfeld, and all that, must-see TV. Saturday night, must-see TV, wrestling at the Chase. And the thing that parallels Saturday Night Live, how you have to turn your name in for the raffle to get tickets to go to Saturday Night Live?
Right.
Yeah.
You could go in free, but you had to get on this raffle list. You might have to wait 3 months, 6 months, but you got there, and you got to be on Wrestling at the Chase. I mean, it was just so iconic. And then to have Dick the Bruiser, all these guys, and it's kind of like I put it into 3 stratas of the 3 decades. Like I said earlier, Lou Thesz, Pat O'Connor. Then you get the Dick Bruiser, Bob Ellis, the Funks, Von Erich's era, and then comes King Kong, Brody, Ric Flair, and the others. So you saw generational levels of Wrestling at the Chase as well.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting. My grandpa told me, and this is a testament. He's 90, but and he told me he remembers actually seeing Gorgeous George down at the Chase back in the day.
Oh, Gorgeous George was there.
It blew my mind because
Marty Rogers. And I'll give you a Gorgeous George. Let me give you a Gorgeous George story that nobody really recognizes or remembers.
Okay.
How wrestling go. Actually, I'll give you a couple facts and I'll lead into this Gorgeous George story. Wrestling goes back thousands of years. I mean, you can find it in caveman drawings. You can find it in Egyptian pyramids, Babylonian mosaics, and then you have the Greeks, the Romans, and the Olympics. But do you know where? Tell America here where the first free-form wrestling in Olympic times took place. 1904 Olympics, just across the street from the Chase Park Plaza in Forest Park. I mean, I fell out of the seat when I found that. Or go to Genesis 34, I think it is, and you got Isaiah wrestling in the Bible. So and then wrestling was this kind of Greco-Roman kind of tag and push upper body. Vaudeville comes in the 1920s, and Roaring 20s we want a little life, and that's when kind of freestyle wrestling really took off. And then you came into the 40s and in the 50s, and Sam Muchnick put the rules around it. But back to Gorgeous George, we all know Muhammad Ali, right?
Of course.
And his shtick, I am the greatest, and his shtick in the ring, and his bum of the month club, and if you can beat me, I'll crawl over to you and kiss your feet. You know where he got that from?
Gorgeous George.
Right after he won the gold medal, Olympic medal, he was at a Gorgeous George wrestling match in Las Vegas. And he was watching Gorgeous George and how he played the crowd and had everybody either hating him or loving him. And, he just played the crowd with his screaming and antics. He went backstage, and Gorgeous George told him, "You do what I do, and you will be the champ forever. People, you will ride the mountain." And that's a true story. Muhammad Ali adopted his shtick off Gorgeous George.
No, that's unbelievable.
I mean, these are the kind of stories that
stories he's sprinkling in.
Amazing.
Wow.
The book is full of these kind of things, finding the first Olympic wrestling freeform across the street from the Chase, it's just, there are so many little tidbits like that. Well,
it's interesting. See, I did not know the one about the 1904 Olympics, about how first free for all wrestling match took place in the 1904 Olympics in Forest Park. I didn't know the story about Gorgeous George and Muhammad Ali, and that's only because being a big time sports guy, I've spent many a nights just randomly looking up history and research historical moments in time, and that's just how I stumbled upon it. But no matter how much I hear it, it still blows my mind because it's from an unlikely place. You wouldn't think Muhammad Ali, who I do consider the greatest athlete of all time, got that, the I am the greatest from Gorgeous George, a professional wrestling manager. I have one last question, and then I know the Night Owl over there is really getting excited. About the book.
Yes.
The current Wrestling at Chase book. So, to make it a coffee table book, it has to be on a scale unlike any other book that you would just find on a shelf at a store.
Right.
Because not only does it have to be not just in the size and scope, but in the content. And as you can see on the screen, folks, you can get your copy today. So with that said, and with the nature of it, what were some complications that you may have had when it came to getting material for the book? I know you had talked to a lot of people. Was there any true, bump in the road trying to make sure this was as best of a book as you could get out there?
The thing that I have to chuckle because just Friday I was given about 400 pictures and I can't tell you how many hundreds of letters and posters from Sam Muchnick's estate from one of his family members that I'd been saying, hey, you got any more pictures? You got any more? It happens like every time, every book I write. After it's done, you get all this material. But, that is one of the biggest problems with writing a book, especially a coffee table book where you put hundreds of photos, is getting the permissions, the licensing. You got Getty Images buying up everything and, then charging you. But I really, in the world of baseball, I got connections and everybody helps me. I had hesitancy at first about this because could we get what is needed to make it the way I want it, the quality I want it, and the quality that's, won all the awards for my other books and movies. And it is amazing, how much people wanted this book for the pictures, the memories, and B, how much people went digging and finding things for me and bringing them to me. I mean, when I write a book, people will be dropping by my house with a box full of memorabilia, books and things. I had people calling me from all over. I hear you're working on this. I've got this. You might want to look at it. And then Herb Simmons, who, Sam passed many things to Larry. Larry passed them to Herb, and Herb made them available to me. And it couldn't be done without, Herb's help and contribution, and that's recognized in the book. And, this book is already launched. We're in the process. As I said, the Browns book was the best book published in baseball by many recognitions and awards. And we made a PBS movie. We actually made 2 PBS movies because the first one set all kinds of records and won Emmy nominations and awards. And we are in the process of filming a documentary for PBS on Wrestling at the Chase based on my book and all this collection of things that you spoke of.
Wonderful. Yeah. And Herb, I look forward to having him on tonight because he's one of a kind. And it doesn't surprise me one bit that he had all kinds of stuff, especially from Larry, to hand over to you. I'm telling you, so that's great. And I'm glad you went through so much time and effort. And I'm glad so many people were able to work in conjunction with you to put together this. Honestly, this I consider it a historical artifact because it contains so much that people do not know about Wrestling at the Chase and the importance that it has, not just in the wrestling industry, but honestly in the history of St. Louis.
Oh yeah. I mean, I said there's like 3 legs of a stool. The first leg, it's supported, but the Wrestling at the Chase is supported by 3 legs. One leg is the history of the Chase Park Plaza and that Forest Park area and what it really became. The second one is the evolution of television in St. Louis so that you could have Channel 11. And the third leg is Sam Muchnick and his stable of wrestlers and how that all came together. And it really was the beacon of wrestling to the rest of the world. And it all happened from St. Louis.
It really did. Well, Renee, I know you've been sitting there ever so patiently. And I know you still got something you want to say to the man himself, Mr. Ed Wheatley. So go for it, my friend.
I do. And I know you already said this, Maestro, but Ed, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Obviously, we're respecters or we have a great amount of respect for the history of the sport. And because of kind of our age, I'm 37, Jeremy's going to be 27, like we cover a lot of the new stuff, but I get a particular joy out of getting the opportunity to learn more about the history, because you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. And I know you're a big proponent of making sure that we keep that history alive. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I consider myself a sports historian. And, I mean, that's why I said, I dug back to cavemen, the Bible, the Quran, all have wrestling history. And I document how wrestling arrived in the lobby of the Chase Park Plaza. Where had it been? And what were the things that brought it to what we then saw in that story? And that's like I talked about, how it changed, as it evolved like into the 1920s, the post-World War I, as, vaudeville and the Roaring '20s came and changed it. And then I carry it once Wrestling at the Chase went off the air, as Sam and Larry left the program and Vince McMahon, I transitioned it because there was another change. As I spoke earlier, you had the 1980s came with cable TV, and, wrestling's on how many channels every night. You had the action of video games had to be brought into the ring compared to the very stoic, very tough wrestling of Sam Muchnick. And, pay-per-view introduced another thing. But I mean, I also go digging, and, one of my favorite pictures in the whole book, I'll look and see if I can find it real quick. But this was Kiel Auditorium on any given night for a wrestling match. This is history. But one of my favorite photos, and is Dick the Bruiser. And again, people would ask me, "Hey, was he one of you? Who was your favorite?" I might say him because he was of my genre. This is the early 1950s Green Bay Packer team in which Dick the Bruiser played. And if you can look there and you see right in the middle, number 72, look at the size of him compared to
wow, look at that chest.
The Green Bay.
Are you sure that's not Haystacks Calhoun? Holy
Deacon Jones.
All of these guys were athletes, and most of them had played some level of college or professional football in the NFL or up in Canada. And, that's the kind of stuff how many people knew this, kind of maniac guy, Dick the Bruiser? I mean, he'd hop out of the ring, take a pitcher of beer, pour it on his head, do a little shake of his head and run back in. Is he cool? Played for the Green Bay Packers for several years, It's just all these little innuendos you find that's, pretty amazing. And then we had players associated with the program. We talk about Larry, how great of an announcer he was. But, Joe Garagiola, before he went to the Today Show, he was the first announcer, and then his brother, Mickey, was the ring announcer. And, he was a legend. The stories of Mickey throughout the 3 decades, it was just unbelievable. So it's just so much fun. All these memories of, like I said, 4 words, Wrestling at the Chase. It does wonders to people's, genre. And, it's just a good pause with what all we have to do in our society today.
Oh, there's no question about it, Ed, and I appreciate you sharing that. And as I'm sitting here listening to the Maestro ask you all these great questions, and I want to thank you, Maestro, for being prepared for today, because when we have guests like this, we got to be ready to go. But it kind of got my gears turning, and I do have some pre-written questions, but something just popped into my mind in connection with traditional sport and professional wrestling. So I kind of want to pick your brain on a very broad subject that I'm sure you'll have a very unique insight on. And here it is. Obviously, we all know that the trajectory of professional wrestling right now is like this. Not only is WWE not contending with any other wrestling company, really, they're contending with the NFL, with the NBA, and with other major forms of entertainment. You also have AEW that is absolutely rocking it from a ratings perspective. I mean, not like back in the 90s, but from today's standards, they're doing rather well and continuing to improve. Unfortunately, another sport that you've written about, baseball, a lot of people contend that it's actually on the opposite end of that spectrum, and that baseball, unfortunately, is on somewhat of a decline. So, being that I get to pick the brain of a guy that is a historian in baseball, but also wrestling, I'm going to ask you this question, Ed. What does baseball need to do to turn the ship around, if you indeed agree with the perception that the trajectory of baseball is kind of on a downward turn right now? What would somebody like you, who's been around both for so long, suggest for Major League Baseball so that they can replicate what professional wrestling has been doing over the last 10 or 15 years?
Well, you go back in history, baseball's been around since the 1800s, but if you really say, hey, from the 1920s up to 1960, baseball had it all to itself. There was really no massive NFL, NBA, NHL. So now, in a way, they got to learn how to play in the sandbox with the other kids, which is wrestling, hockey, basketball, and football. All you have to do is drive around. When I was a kid playing, and I grew up, my dad played professional baseball and all this stuff. You could not find during a day kids out playing baseball at the local park by themselves, just pick up games. And when I grew up, you were one of the first 18 there in the morning, or you had to wait till somebody left or had to go home for lunch. You don't see kids out playing baseball anymore. I go into schools and I talk about some of the books. I also talk about what it's being an author. And I'll say something about how many people watched the Cardinals last night. So many people, kids tell me they don't watch it. And, some of that is ethnic related. There are different segments of ethnicity. They don't watch baseball. It's not their concern right now. And baseball's got to learn how to get those different ethnicities. They also got to speed up the game. Wrestling is speed. Hockey is speed. That's what it is right now. People's patience. Baseball's a little slow. It's still a great game if you know what it is, but unfortunately, like you said, it's not drawing, and it's baseball is trying so many different things. They may shoot themselves, as they've tried to change the game with some of their new rules. 7 innings, double headers, men on second base, extra inning.
That's terrible.
People play a lot of these things. A pitcher's got to pitch, so. It is a question: can baseball survive? Not just how. It's a can. So you're absolutely right.
Well, I guess just thinking based on your response, I would say it really comes down to two things. I don't know if you agree with me. I think the pace of the game and the speed is number one. It's just slower compared to everything else. You can complain about football or AKA soccer that it's they only score once a game. It's boring, but the action is nonstop. Right. So that kind of has an advantage to itself. But the second thing, and the most important thing, in my opinion, I think is baseball's lack of ability of building stars. In the NBA, even if you're not an NBA fan, you can name 3 to 5 NBA stars at any given time and any given moment. Can we really do that with baseball? We know we can definitely do it with football because the Maestro's trying, and I'm not sure if he can. Now, I know you follow baseball closely, but for the casual fan, I think it's really been a struggle, and I think it's unfortunate because baseball is a beautiful game. And if they just kind of replicate a little bit of maybe kind of what Muhammad Ali did, or for you younger guys out there that watch the show, kind of Conor McGregor copying the Vince walk and the promo style. I mean, even Conor McGregor, Ed, has admitted that he kind of maybe bit a little bit of Vince McMahon's style with what he did. And again, MMA has been very good about building their stars. Every other sport, I think it's just baseball that's lagging behind. I know we got Tatis and a few other guys that are great, but I think they just need to get better at that and tell more compelling stories.
Well, I think, there's a lot. You don't have a Reggie Jackson, Mr. October or things, but, part of it is growing up and for decades, players were with a team for a career, using Albert Pujols here as an example in St. Louis. Phenomenal player. He owned the town, but he left. This free agency of leaving and all that. And, it's also the ticket prices have gotten so high and outrageous for people to
Yes.
And when you're sitting there and a guy like Alex Cole or Trevor Bauer, who's not even playing anymore, signs a $35 million contract, and he's going to pitch probably 30 to 35 times a year. That means when I'm paying this high price of a ticket, watching a man get $1 million for going out there and throwing 5 or 6 innings. I mean, I'll do it for, $50,000, but I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, I think there's this thing in baseball, when you look at the salaries to what these guys are making to the people, you can't even what it costs to bring your family to a baseball game. And I know it's football and basketball,
right?
And hockey have these higher prices. Hockey doesn't have quite as much, but when you play 162 games and you're taking, your family of 4 to get in, and then some refreshments while you're there for those 3 or 4 hours, and it's that I think I hear all these stories. We go back to the Browns, or the Cardinals, the Knothole gang, the Browning Brigade. The kids got in free. And they flocked out of school and hopped on the streetcars and headed to Sportsman's Park for those 2:30 games. And, that's where they evolved the love of baseball, And, they today, I will say in talking with some of the Cardinal owners and things, they've taken out some seats and they've put in beer gardens because in the instance all across the major league, baseball for millennials has become a social event, not an event to go watch the game. They'll go in and they'll sit in a beer garden with big TVs and, have the specialty drinks, watching it in there with their friends instead of sitting in the seats, keeping score, watching the game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I hope that doesn't change. Maestro, I know you want to jump in here, but yeah, for the life of me, I can't understand why baseball hasn't tried some of these things, particularly star building, because we all know that all sports is star driven. And unless you have more Tatises or more Pujols, and I hate to say it, I know that this rubs people the wrong way, but Barry Bonds or McGuire or Sosa, if we don't have more stuff like that happening, I think, unfortunately, baseball may be a little bit too late to the party in trying to replicate what pro wrestling has been doing over the last couple of years.
1998, we didn't have the iPhones where we could immediately look and see what the teams were doing in other cities. But I mean, 1998, that month of August and September, you couldn't wait to get the newspaper. Did McGuire get one? Did Sosa get one? I mean,
huge.
It was the whole world fascinating.
Wow, while you guys do that, that reminds me of something memorabilia-wise.
I think he's bringing something to the table, Ed. I think the Maestro is going to show off here in just a second. Well, before we let him do that, and we'll let him close out with that, I actually want to play a little bit of a game based on the book, because we definitely want to highlight the book. That's, again, guys, Wrestling at the Chase by our friend Ed Wheatley. It's a coffee topper, which are my favorite kind of books. I love having books not only to read, but like to kind of show off to friends when they come over. Absolutely wonderful, and they last a lifetime. They're heavy. They're great to hold when you're a bigger guy like me. You don't want some fragile little book, or especially you don't want to read stuff off your phone. That doesn't even feel the same. But
we use a quality cover and quality paper. That's the other thing that gets us that brings out the brilliance of the pictures.
Would love that. Well, speaking of the pictures, thank you for the great segue. I'm actually going to share a few more pictures with your permission, and they're from your book. When you see them, just give us like a short, kind of like an ink blot test type of deal. When you see these pictures, just in a few words, tell us what's the first thing that comes to your mind. Is that okay with you, Ed?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. Here's the first one.
King Kong Brody, it's the action. It's the hair of King Kong Brody flying, the kicks, it's just intense action.
Intense action. And shame on anybody who thinks the old school had no athleticism. Allow this picture from Wrestling at the Chase by Ed Wheatley serve as evidence, and I'm speaking to the jury here, that yes, there was athleticism, but the guys decided to tell a story in a little bit of a different fashion. But they could very well do this kind of stuff, guys. This picture, I think, demonstrates it perfectly. Here's the next one for you.
This is, getting in the later days of wrestling. Andre the Giant, and you got the tag team match, and you got the guys coming in from the other. But I mean, I think when you talk about what we just spoke about a minute ago, legends, is there any bigger legend than Andre the Giant? You always go, and the thing about him, he crosses lines. I always think of when I see Andre the Giant or that picture on his face there, my first reaction was,
what's that, Ed?
Hey, lady. You remember from The Princess Bride?
Well, of course.
He rides up and goes,
he's so amazing.
To the princess, hey, lady. I mean, I see that in his face and his voice right there.
I love it. I got another one pumping up for you, Ed. All right.
Tell me this doesn't hurt.
Taylor Kowalski, man.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Tell me that doesn't hurt. I mean,
right, the
this
kisser.
is the real deal of wrestling in the golden age of wrestling. That these guys, as we said two pictures ago, this is pure athleticism. But I mean, this just shows you, and why I wanted this. This is the kind of action you see throughout the book. These types of pictures we picked, and whether there is some staging and sticking, that's still a pop to your chin and chest.
Exactly. There's certain things that you can orchestrate, and there's some things that you can't. And when you get kicked in the chin, there's no need to sell, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's why people would go ringside to see this stuff.
Absolutely.
The lady might get a little spray out of the mouth on her evening gown, but hey, she was there.
It's a parting gift.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring the Maestro back in here because I know he was super fired up. Bro, I know there was something you wanted to share with us. We only have a couple of minutes left. Why don't you go ahead and bring it to the table, Maestro?
It won't take long. So I got, Ed, me being big on sports and everything. I have a big memorabilia collection, big card collection. What some also don't know is I collect a lot of newspapers. Now I got stuff back when Kennedy was assassinated, Nixon impeached.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have a lot of sports newspapers. And one of them, I have a lot from 1998. This one happens to be from Wednesday, September 9th, 1998.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
I was there.
I have a whole bunch from that year. So, and this happens to be one of them. So when you guys Renee mentioned Mark McGuire, I was like, oh, I know I have this somewhere. But I got
I got that. I was sitting along the third base line, but just above the visitors' dugout, and the first 3, 4, 5 innings, nothing was happening, and then he hit that shot. They were playing the Cubs, of course. Who better to dig it into?
Of course.
And that ball, you just saw it, and because usually you're used to these boom mammoth high ones. Remember he hit,
this one was a line drive.
He put the Band-Aid on deep center field where he hit the post dispatch sign, and this one, it just it was hit hard, but that line drive, and it just made it by inches, and it was like he did it. He did it,
All right, so 2 things. And I don't know if you realize this. The younger crowd will understand what I'm saying when I say this. What you just did is called a low-key floss. That means without intentionally trying to, you just totally destroyed the Maestro's little newspaper. He's like, yeah, I was on the third base line, like very cool. We're super jealous. You're the man.
Kind, but it's not.
It's not. It's not. Oh, dude, that's absolutely incredible. I love that. I think that's great, man.
One of the things go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say we were mentioning about things that baseball could do to really, spice up, get some pizzazz. I mean, some of the things the St. Louis Browns did in their later years. Fans could come in and manage the game for them. They would make the calls on what to do.
Grandstand manager night.
Yeah, manager night. And one time it actually led to the Browns beating the Yankees. How that happened? Hell, I don't know, but it worked.
Well, they brought in a little guy. The other thing Bill Beck did, and that's we're having our luncheon this year. We have an annual luncheon, and Mike Beck, his son's coming in to talk about all the things his dad did at the Browns and then the White Sox. He, the little guy, Eddie Goodell, bat, 3'7". But he would also, after every game, there could be the game's over and the gate's open, and here comes tigers and elephants and giraffes. They'd have a circus. Or Sweet Georgia Brown would start playing on the speakers, and men are coming in carrying a basketball court, and here comes the Harlem Globetrotters. Or when they went up to Chicago, remember Disco Demolition Night? You know, everybody brought the disco records and they blew them up.
That's something Renee would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Count me in.
Go do that.
Dude, I would absolutely love that. Maestro, I don't have one more question. Did you have anything else for Ed? Because I know we have to transition to break, and then obviously we got Herb coming up in just a couple of minutes. What do you got for Ed?
I was just gonna say, I'm hoping I'd love to be able to attend that St. Louis Browns gathering this year. So I know I'll definitely be in contact with you possibly about that.
I'll tell you how to get. It's November 3rd. November 3rd.
Okay. I'll definitely be in touch about that. But on top of that, Ed, it has been just great having you on. I always love talking to you, buddy. I mean, you are just a wealth of knowledge, and from a guy who loves like indulging knowledge. So thank you so much for being on. And
I appreciate being here.
Live. So
thank you. Get it. It's a great Christmas present for everybody. You won't believe. Even Grandma or Aunt Martha is going to go back in time with it.
Very true.
Yeah, buff guys with no shirts on. I know my wife is going to dig it. She's going to love it.
Yeah, she does.
The original Speedos. It was the original Speedos in the early days.
Dude, I love that. Well, Ed, there's one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, man, and kind of give you the full platform. If you had, your 30-second elevator pitch for anybody who's, thinking about getting the Wrestling at the Chase book, tell us what are the reasons that inspired you to actually write this book and why everybody should go ahead and try to pick it up.
Because it was a simple time. And as I said, those 4 words, Wrestling at the Chase, bring back such instant memories, whether it was the fun and the entertainment of the program, because there wasn't all kinds of entertainment. It was the bonding with your family because you had one television. And it's writing these books, these memories shouldn't be forgotten. And by writing the book, you bring the memories back. And that's whether it was the Browns book or these other books I've written, it's about the memories and just keeping them alive in families. They may have forgotten things, but you open this up at Christmas, and I will give you one last story real quick. I wrote the Browns book. A guy came up to me at this big charity event, and he said, "Are you the Browns guy?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You wrote the book, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he started crying. And I'm looking at him going, "What did I do?" And his wife then comes, is that him? And he said, "Yeah." And she got a tear in her eye. His dad has dementia and Alzheimer's. He doesn't know what to buy his dad. He goes and sits with him, a couple times a week in the home, and they just sit in quiet and watch TV. He bought him the Browns book because he knew he was a big Browns fan. He opened up the book at Christmas, unwrapped it. He gives him shirts and things. Nothing ever happens. He opens this book, and he starts pointing and calling out names and telling stories. And, I've talked to many doctors. This long-term memory comes back. So, I tell this to people. This is something you should buy, these books of your elders, because it will take them back, and it's a happy time. And the guy said, and this chokes me up a lot of times to say this, and when I was doing this live on TV on PBS telling the story, he said, "I just want to thank you. My dad and I sit with him, and for the last 3 years, we've never really talked. He may not know I'm his son, but you gave me my dad back. And we sit and talk baseball with your book." And I think he'll do the same thing with this wrestling book.
That's wonderful. Well, that really is something.
I'm getting choked up over here, man.
And that's why
I'm the night owl. I don't get choked up.
And you asked me, why do I do it? That's why I do it.
Ed, well, thank you for so many reasons, for being here, for the knowledge, for the passion, for the sincerity. You're the kind of person that this show is created for. Yeah, we've had the privilege of having guys that are now on network television every single week. And if you guys want to know who those people are, just go to the website. We got a whole poster lineup for you. But for me, it's the Ed Wheatleys, the Herb Simmons, the Tracy Smothers. These are the guys, the John Cospers, the guys who love and cherish the history of professional wrestling as much as they love the sport itself. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick round of applause for the newest member of the Wrestle Talk family, the one and only author, prestigious author, Ed Wheatley. Tip our cap to you, my friend. Ed, before you go, two things. Number one, welcome as the newest member of the Wrestle Talk family. And number two, promise us you won't be a stranger.
Oh, no. Just invite me back anytime. Hey, I told you, we're looking for a March premiere of that movie. We need to come back and talk about the movie.
Maestro, I'm putting you in charge of getting that coordinated. How about that?
Count me in. I got everything taken care of. Ed and I, we got this.
Wonderful. Well, Ed, thank you so much for your time. We'll go ahead and sign off. You always have a home here at the Wrestle Talk podcast with myself, the Maestro, and the rest of the boys. We really appreciate your time, man. You have a safe evening and be blessed.
Thank you very much.
All right, amigo. Good night.
Good evening, Ed.
Wow, Maestro. I know you came in a little bit late, but it was like the cavalry came in, and we had an amazing interview with an amazing guest, and we've got more to come, bro. How exciting was that, and how excited are you for the rest of the show?
Well, the only thing I'm not excited for is the fact that I got a lot of papers to put back in order to put. I had to go.
It was
through
worth
part of
it. Dude, it was worth it. But then you got the low-key floss where he's like, oh, yeah, I was like on the third baseline. And
you know what? I deal with
Ed's the man.
I deal with that shit all the time with people. One of my friends at work does that all the time. So it's okay. Like, Ed,
yeah, dude, especially when it's Ed Wheatley.
He's an amazing guy. He's an amazing author. You know, I think the last story he had just told us sums him up perfectly. And the world will be a much better place if there were more of him on it.
You know what? And I like Ed so much, I actually am going to bestow him with the Wrestle Talk. That's E-Dub right there from now on. Anytime we talk about Ed Wheatley, we're talking about E-Dub, the renowned author and sports writer, bro. Absolutely love that guy. Well, guess what, Maestro? We're going to take a very, very short break, courtesy of our friend Vince Sanity with his song Heaven's Demons. And guess what? We're coming back for the rest of the Wrestle Talk podcast, episode 364, with the one and only, the Hall of Famer, the Hoffa, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. You know him. You love him. You know who I'm talking about. Herb Simmons. We'll see you on a few.
All right, let's get these papers cleaned up.
Listen. You can shoot all your shots and we still won't come down. We some wolves, we some rods, yeah, they call us out. By all means, we some kings and our table is round. Wanna float to the top, there's a chance we might drown. When the dark touch the ground, we come round. When the dark touch the ground, we come round. When the dark touch the ground, we come round. When the dark touch the ground, everybody knows that I'm the baddest right now. Everybody knows that I would never back down. Everybody knows that there really is no crown. Even if there was one, they need to sit the fuck down. They need to sit the fuck down. Clowns who really got the crown right now. Sit the fuck down. You clowns. Yes, sir. You can shoot all your shots and we still won't come down. We some wolves, we some rods, yeah, they call us out. By all means, we some kings and our table is round. Wanna float to the top, there's a chance we might drown. When the dark touch the ground, we come round. When the dark touch the ground, we come round. When the dark touch the ground, we come round. When the dark touch the ground. You might think we some guys, but we really just men. We don't walk on the water, we still gotta swim. I just keep it 1,000 while they play pretend. I just keep moving down and down, yeah. It goes so hard that they gotta give props. Team full of stars, now they connecting dots. Not a heartbreaker, I just make hearts drop. And I think that they hate me because I'm unorthodox. Not in your face, but I'm all in thoughts. Live how I want while you live in a box. Used to bust knocks, now I just get knocks. Even though I'm cold-blooded, I'ma always be hot. You can shoot all your shots and we still won't come down. We some wolves, we some rods, yeah, they call us hounds. By all means, we some kings and our table is round. Wanna float to the top, there's a chance we might drown. When the dark touches the ground, we come round, 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 round. When the dark touches the ground, we come round, 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 round. When the dark touches the ground.
And here we are once again back for the remainder of episode 364 of the Wrestle Talk podcast. Maestro. I know that the Wrestle Talk podcast is a demanding and prestigious podcast, but I think it's worth the work, bro. And I know when I say demanding, it's usually yours truly the night. I'm like, get this and get that. But, bro, when we get an opportunity to talk to guys like Ed Wheatley and have that sort of a conversation, you got to admit, I'm worth putting up with. Admit it, Maestro. You love me.
I mean, you're all right. But
oh, really?
Fucking bullshit!
You gotta hand.
legend.
I'm glad you already used the Iron Sheik on this one because you gotta hand it to me. I'm thankful to know these guys really well. Thankful to know Ed. Just such a great guy. It was by chance that I didn't realize at first. This wasn't until about a few weeks before the NWA show that he was the gentleman in charge of the St. Louis Browns historical fan group, and I'm like, holy shit. Look at this. Two awesome roads, baseball history, wrestling, and wrestling history connect. And I was like, there we go. So I love it.
No, me too. And you know what I just realized after hearing you say that? Like, I admire a lot of different people in a lot of different industries, but I always particularly admire that guys can do what they love for a living. And Ed Wheatley is an author, a serious author for a living. That's what he does. Herb Simmons, our next guest, is a promoter. Now, he does a lot of other things for his community. We know he's a leader, an ambassador in certain ways for the sport of professional wrestling. But when you think Herb Simmons, you think wrestling. And that's what he does for a living. So I aspire to be like them, Maestro, a guy who can do what I love for a living. Now, I have a great job, pays well, I enjoy it, but it's not what I love. And I know if you could, you would do I-70 sports media for a living. I know if I could, I would do Wrestle Talk Podcast / Fantasy Wrestling Worldwide Chapter / Royal Alliance Wrestling for a living. We're not there yet, but I get this feeling that by talking to guys like this and having relationships with guys like this, that fountain of knowledge is being bestowed not only on just you and me, bro, but on the rest of the Wrestle Talk family. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you had mentioned how, give me 1 second, drop my water bottle, but you had mentioned how we're not quite there yet. Well, shit, just think about where we were a few months ago. I mean, we were literally like, you want to know what our platform was to do the show? This. My phone.
That's facts.
This is how we do this. And now look at us. We got StreamYard, and that's thanks to you all for tuning in, and thanks to our wonderful sponsors. It's just amazing how much we progress. And you're right. I would love to do I-70 sports media as a living. I do love working in healthcare, helping out. It mentally wears you down, but yeah, nevertheless, I love what I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
No doubt about it.
I just know there's an end goal. And you know what? People like our next guest make it even more enjoyable. So
yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, It'll be my pleasure to conduct this introduction because this is a longtime member of the Wrestle Talk family. And, you know, Maestro, I'm going to be 100% sincere. We get a lot of love here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. I have people that reach out to me a lot. We have great communication. And there's people that kind of have to do that to stay in our good graces. And we, of course, want to stay in their good graces as well. But there's some people that really don't have to do that. They just got the clout. They got the prestige. They've got the name. They don't have to be nice to us. I'll keep it simple. But this guy has never been not nice. He's been nothing but a class act, respectful, kind, generous, giving. As a matter of fact, you may not know this. So about 2 years ago, I went to my first SICW show. And I got a great seat, obviously. Beer was cheap. Hot crowd. Dude, I'm sitting there enjoying the show with my boys, Skywalker, Luke Roberts, and Patrick Brandmeier. And all of a sudden, I get called into the ring and get recognized by Dr. Drew Abbenhouse. And I know that it came from Herb. And he wasn't necessarily recognizing me, even though they did. But they were recognizing our contributions to the pro wrestling world. Now, I think it's very small compared to a guy like him. But, dude, to get that sort of recognition, to get that kind of affirmation, that pat on the back for someone so credible that realistically doesn't have to do it, I've never forgotten that moment, and it's meant so much to me. Just like I know myself and my buddy Jay Hollywood were talking. He's like, man, you know what? There's a lot of great promotions, but, bro, Herb Simmons, SICW, without a shadow of a doubt, at the very top of that list, along with a few others. So it is always my honor and pleasure to welcome in guests, but it's especially thrilling to welcome in longtime members of the Wrestle Talk family, pillars of St. Louis Pro Wrestling, and a multi-time Hall of Famer, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure, as well as it should be yours, to welcome in one more time to the Wrestle Talk podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome in Herb Simmons. Mr. Simmons, welcome to the show this evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. What a great show. I tell you, anytime you got somebody like Ed on there, it's worth listening to. You didn't even have to put me on. I could listen to him all night.
Well, me too. I was looking at the clock. I was like, well, we only got 5 minutes left. It's not fair. I was a little disappointed, but, November's right around the corner. And so hopefully we'll have him back on very, very soon. But Herb, real quick, a lot of people compliment my background. I got a lot of variety. And a lot of people haven't seen this, but I got a full picture of Kansas City on this side and a full picture of St. Louis on this side. So I have love and appreciation for both cities, but your background is putting my background to shame. I just got to be honest. Can you tell us a little bit about what you got going on back there? Because that is outstanding.
It's three of the gentlemen that introduced me to what I love so much. Sam Muchnick, Larry Matisek, and of course, Bruiser Brody is my 24-hour watch person here at my house. Those are the cardboard cutouts that I have up on my wall here. And I owe everything that I've done in this business to those three gentlemen.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And I know you heard our interview with Ed. Obviously, talking about the legends is something that you're better at than most people, Herb. But I have to ask you, because you were there along with our very own Jeremy Karp, the maestro of I-70 Sports Media. NWA 73, Herb, what were the feelings as you were walking back into that building? I know you have a lot of relationships with the brass over there, but just as a wrestling fan, how did it feel for you to be able to walk back into the Chase?
Well, to me, it was special because, you could hear the walls talk, the chandeliers talk. And like Ed said, I've had the opportunity to be at the Corsan Room at the Chase there for other functions, for award ceremonies or just different events. And I have not been there one time for any of those other type of events that the conversation of wrestling at the Chase didn't come up. And of course, then I became the center of attention because somebody would say, well, Herb, he knew the guys that used to perform in this room. And so then it would start that conversation of, could you imagine Dick the Bruiser being in here, or Johnny Valentine, or Farmer Marlin, people like that. But yeah, it was great. I was glad Billy and his crew invited us to be part of that. Seen a lot of fans there that that are St. Louis has got the best fans, I say, anywhere. Of course, each area claims that, but I'm partial to the Midwest, of course, and SICW.
Same.
And I saw Jeremy there that night, and a lot of fans. But the Chase was the place for all those years, and every legend that I've worked with has said, you never made it to the big time until you made it to St. Louis. And I agree with that.
Well, I know we asked Ed this question. You may have been listening. With all the recent happenings, including the big dog coming into town in January, are you putting that stake back into the ground now? Knowing you, Herb, you're a humble guy, but you're also an assertive guy, and you've never not planted that St. Louis is the home. Don't disrespect us, even though, because every territory, every sport goes through ups and downs, like what we're seeing with baseball right now, and wrestling's kind of on an uptick or whatever. But now more than ever, please tell me you're like, yes, St. Louis continues to be the hub of professional wrestling, at the very least in the United States, if not of the world. Do you feel like the recent happenings are contributing to that? Because I firmly do, and I don't even live in St. Louis.
I'll be real honest with you. I've had that conversation over the last 48 hours. I've had a lot of time the last 4 days to think. My wife is ill in the hospital, but so my number one thought has been with her. But still,
blessings to her.
Still in all, I have to. The conversation of the big dog, as they call them, I don't think they're the big dog nowadays. I think the big dog has been moved down to a Chihuahua.
And why do you say that? I'm curious, sir.
Well, and again, these are my personal opinions, and I probably offend some people out there, but I told a gentleman the day I was talking to, a good friend of mine, that if somebody said they'd give me $100 for every person I could name on the, as you say, the big dog roster, I'd make $100, because above Randy Orton, I don't know anybody else.
That's fair. I love how you always keep it real, Herb. I appreciate that about you.
But again, and I'll be real also, I think the only reason we're seeing that announcement get made is because of what Billy just did with the NWA coming to town. I mean,
thank you. You beat me to the punch.
Yeah, he. When's the last time the Chihuahuas been in town? 2012 or whenever it was.
Long time since they've had a pay-per-view here.
Long time, and again, and they'll do good. What they don't sell on tickets, they'll give away in paper. That's one of the oldest tricks in the book. You never want to have a pay-per-view with an empty arena. But I wish him luck. I wish him well, because as you said earlier, wrestling is, and Sam Muchnick said that many years ago. It's like a roller coaster ride.
Cyclical,
It goes up and goes down, and we're reaching that. With all the talent that's out there and all the organizations, it's I still am concerned on the local level of what's called oversaturation. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for some promotions and promoters to understand that, because they haven't lived through that. And then they sit back and they go home and they look at their sheets and they scratch their heads and say, man, we didn't do so good tonight. Why? We only had 50, 75, 100 people there. Well, that's because 10 miles down the road or 5 miles down the road, they drew another 30, 40, 50 people that would have been coming to yours. But I think some people wake up one morning and say, I'm going to become a Vince McMahon and I'm going to get in the wrestling business. Well, if you're thinking that, you're wrong. I'm just sorry. I've never, ever thought that. I everything he's touched, even his football thing, made him money. So how do you compete with?
But not for long.
No, but guess what he got? He got one of the biggest tax write-offs ever. They talked about when Major came to town out in your area.
Oh yeah, we could talk for hours about that.
I was one of the first companies he offered me a job. Was going to buy me out. He sat with Larry Matysek and I for a couple hours, a couple different times at lunch. And Larry and I told him, give us that $1 million you're talking about investing, and
We'll make you rich,
We'll
richer.
We'll spend it wisely for you. But these guys let people get in their ears that have no knowledge of the business whatsoever, and I don't know it all, believe me. But I got to sit underneath that learning tree of those gentlemen behind me there, and I was like the sponge. I soaked all of that knowledge in.
Well, and for those of the younger demographic, let me translate for Herb Simmons. He's saying you can't do what we do if you're a Johnny come lately. If they're coming to town now, it's because they saw something that scared them. And I don't think anybody else would have brought that take. Maestro, I'll let you jump in here briefly. This is why we love having Herb Simmons on the show, because not only are we going to get a history lesson, we're going to get a lesson in the organization of professional wrestling on a grander scale. Do you think there's any validity to what Herb's saying about this Royal Rumble just coincidentally happening a few months after NWA 73? I got to get your thoughts on that, Maestro.
You know what? I do agree. I can definitely see that. First off, hey, Herb, how's it going, buddy? It's
buddy.
Good seeing you. Yeah, I had some technical difficulties, but yeah, I definitely can agree with that. And when you talk about oversaturation, I love wrestling in the St. Louis. I love wrestling that's in the St. Louis area, but I have no issue saying that there is a lot of it. And that's why there's literally a website that talks about all the events coming up and all these different promotions. And, it's just the metro area. And it just brings up, like you're talking about, there is just a real big, a real big market, but a real small group of promotions that are just drawing fans away from each other. And it brings up the question, why are we drawing, a small amount? And yeah, the only reason to me WWE is having the Rumble in St. Louis in January is because of the success of the NWA 73. There is no coincidence about it. I'm not even, or there's, yeah, they can hide it however they want. But last time they had the Royal Rumble in St. Louis, I went to it. It was at the Enterprise Center, and there was just maybe 20,000 people. There now, it's just because they want to step their game up and try to put 40,000 seats in that stadium for the Royal Rumble at the Dome. So yes, it's no coincidence. You're absolutely right. It just blows my mind, quite frankly.
Well, somebody had to say it. Somebody had to say, no Johnny come latelys, and we know why you're doing it. So we appreciate Herb for that. I want to switch gears here and go back to something that we were talking about with Ed. You've seen and you're familiar, and I know you contributed greatly to the book that he's going to be putting out here very, very soon, the Coffee Table book. Talk to us about your feelings with working with people who are trying to encapsulate the history of a place like the Chase. I know Ed has your utmost respect. You guys are likely very good friends. What does it mean to you to see a publication like that come out with something that you basically are putting your name behind as well?
Well, I got to tell you, I've learned Ed to be a very humble individual. When I was first approached, it was no secret I'd already helped Larry 17 years ago, Larry Matysek, with the Wrestling at the Chase book. And when the publisher first called me and said, hey, we've got an author that's wanting to write a book. Would you be interested? And it's the Wrestling at the Chase book. And I said, no, I've already helped do that. And he said, well, would you at least meet with Mr. Wheatley? And I said, sure. And Ed came over. We met. I brought some of my collection stuff that I had and showed him just a small sample of what it was. And I immediately found out that Ed had the passion. And I had told him that Larry and I had always talked about doing a coffee table style book. It was on our bucket list to do. We did the reproduction of the Wrestling at the Chase tapes. And so he came up and, he'd done the 50 greatest wrestlers of all times and the Bruiser Brody with Barbara Goodish book. But he always wanted to have a book like Ed was talking about doing. And Ed had brought over samples of the baseball books that he had done. And I immediately, from looking at those books, I knew that this guy was the one that, if I was ever going to be involved with helping somebody continue that legacy alive again, it was going to be Ed. And so we struck up a good relationship. But I tell you what, I thought Larry Matisek burnt the candle at both ends. Ed is right there with Larry, and a guy that is a perfectionist. I think if he didn't tell you, he may have forgotten. There was a few things I threw in some curves on that, and I'll give you one example. Is we were talking, and I said, I remember growing up and watching wrestling at the Chase on a Wednesday night. And he said, Herb, I hate to disagree with you. He said, I don't think so. He said, it was always Saturday, Sunday, I said, no. I said, I'm telling you, Wednesday night. And it was about probably a week or two later, I get a call from him. We'd been talking in between, but he called me about a week later and said, you know what? He said, I found out what you were talking about. And it was on Wednesday night. And but it was just things like that. There's a picture in the book of a little what you call a keychain pendlet, and on one side of it, and I've got it. It's got a KPLR TV channel 11, and when you flip it over, it's got Wrestling at the Chase with the number 44, and it says admittance to Bear and their guest. Nobody seems to be able to find any more of them, so I told Ed, maybe you want to put this in the book. So he is, and what I really liked about it, Night Owl, is, the book is those 4 words, Wrestling at the Chase, is what I've said I want to carry on forever and ever. But he even took it further than that. The book talks about what else was going on around the time of Wrestling at the Chase. When it started on television in 1959, he talks about the Three Stooges, things like that. We always said growing up, there wasn't much to watch on TV. You had Three Stooges, Wrestling at the Chase, and roller derby, and we grew up on all 3 of them watching them. So,
shout out to Muckety Muck, by the way. Roller derby and wrestling have a very weird connection that very few people know about.
Exactly, and but Ed has done a tremendous job on the book. I'm really honored that he included me in it. There's a chapter about how the torch is passed, and I don't want to tell too many stories, but it will tell you on there how that torch was passed. And there's some pictures in there of Sam and I, and a quick story about that. Ed said, Herb, it'd be nice to have a picture of you and Sam that I need for this book. And after all these years and all the times I was around Sam, I I kind of thought there was one out there or some out there, but I never did have one myself. And I had been working with Larry's wife, Pat Matisek. I said, I need to see some of the Larry stuff, just to see what could be used in the book that I didn't have already. And she sent me down an envelope one day, and I'm going through some other photos that she had in there and some papers and his termination letter from WWF back in the day. And that's a story for another day. But I was getting ready to put the envelope down, and I felt something in it, and I looked in and I reached inside of it, and behold, it was a picture of Larry, Sam, and I together.
That's great.
Wow.
And I immediately scanned it and sent it to Ed, and he said, bingo, that just made the book, basically. So,
wow. Ed's a lucky guy.
Yeah, and, I was fortunate, I've got great guys in our locker room at SICW, and several of them got their pictures in the book. So, they're excited. I like to pass that because without a good locker room and good fans, there is no SICW. And as far as that goes, there is no promotion unless you got good workers and good fans.
Well, there's no question about that. And I guess I would be remiss, and this may be the only time that we do something like this, but shout out to the Wilds for welcoming in their new baby. Shout out to Chrissy. Shout out to Curtis. I know that they're regulars, and I know Curtis Wild can be volatile, but it's always an amazing thing to welcome a new life into the world. What message would you send to the Wilds if they were watching here tonight?
I've already got the contract signed because the size of that baby it's going to be real quick.
The ultimate promoter, Herb Simmons.
9 pounds, 10 ounces, 21 inches long.
Wow.
Yeah,
Sounds like Keith Smith Jr.
I've got the contract already signed. No, we don't see eye to eye a lot of times, but they're a thorn in the rural behind. But anytime we can bring a new life into this trying world that we're in right now, I wish them all the best.
Well, there's no question. When I come back, I'm going to throw it over to the Maestro. But when I come back, I know I definitely want to talk about the upcoming Shore War, which we know Haku is going to be making an appearance in. He's going to be going on against a former guest of the show, Attila Khan, the international bounty hunter, and Dr. D. David Schultz will also be in the building. So once you're done, Maestro, I want to make sure we have enough time to get back to that because that's going to be an outstanding and huge event, as always, with SICW. But Maestro, why don't you take it away? Because I know you've been chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I will admit that was actually what I was going to talk about, believe it or not. Because let me tell you something, folks. With each passing day, now let me tell you something. To me, Herb is who I like to consider Mr. Encyclopedia. This guy is, I mentioned how Ed's a wealth of knowledge. Well, Herb is the bookkeeper. He is the collector's keeper. I mean, you need to know it. You need to find out about it. Herb will find out about it. He has such great connections in the wrestling industry, and he's so well respected. I say this because as the days have passed on in recent weeks, I keep seeing some of the wrestlers that are going to be at this event on October 30th at SICW. And, we already mentioned Attila Khan. Haku is going to be there. Jerry the King Lawler. And the Rock and Roll Express. Now, those are just some of the names I'm going to name because there is a lot. What's it like, Herb, to, especially, we're still dealing with the effects of the pandemic, but what's it like to be able in this day right now to still be able to get all these legends who've left their mark in the professional wrestling industry for life and to get them all at one place and still showcase why they are the best?
Well, it's great, and it's an honor to be able to have that relationship with so many of them. And again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. The three gentlemen there behind me, Sam, Larry, and Frank, Bruiser Brody, and there's other people that they had introduced me to that helped me along the way. But Sam also always told Larry and I, in life, and especially in this business, there's two things that you can control. And if you lose control of them, then you need to look of not being in the wrestling business. And that's integrity and your honesty. And if you lose them, and so many people that get in this business, one, don't have that when they get into it, or they quickly lose it because of, they want to use somebody's name to try to put butts in the seats, knowing that they don't have them booked anyway. And that's been a history in professional wrestling for many, many years. I have been very, very fortunate that if we book somebody, unless it's something out of our control, they're there. And I don't think you'll find anybody in the business to say that Herb Simmons or anybody from the SICW staff told him a story, lied to him. Again, it goes back to your integrity and how much you want to have these people respect you. When you pick up a phone and you call Greg Valentine or you meet Haku out in Vegas when you're there for the reunion, and Travis Cook is trying to outmaneuver you. He was playing chess and I was playing checkers because I'm good at checkers. And and so Haku will be in town. But to answer your question, Jeremy, it's a good feeling. It's rewarding to know that it's soon to be 48 years that I soaked in that knowledge that Sam and Larry and those guys gave me, kept my ears open and my mouth shut. And man, if so many other guys would learn that, come to the locker room, do your job, go home and think about the next show. But no, everybody's got, and Night Owl, when I turned in earlier for a few minutes before I had to get on the phone, I heard you say one word. It's a 3-letter word that if everybody would just leave it at the door, things would be so much better. And that's the word ego. Because that is what is going to ruin and my feelings on the word independent, but it still continues to get used out there. Why guys want to consider themselves an independent wrestler or on the independent circuit. I mean, they're all the license you get in Missouri under the Missouri State Athletic Board says professional wrestler, doesn't say independent wrestler. But if guys want to consider themselves in the minor league, that's fine and dandy. But they need to learn to check their ego at the door. So back to your question. It's great. This show we got coming up with all these talents on it. We were in that building 2 years ago. We'd have been there last year, but because of the pandemic, it was canceled. Last year we had Kevin Nash scheduled to be there, Matt Hardy, a few of the other people, and it got canceled. So we're trying to play catch up. And I think we've got an outstanding lineup. Recently is the day, adding my good friend, Dr. D. David Schultz.
Oh, yeah, and that's another great addition to an already star-studded lineup. I know I'm looking forward to being there. When I look at what's behind you with Sam, Larry, and Brody, the stories of the friendship of you and Brody, you've told me so much. And I think it shows the style of wrestling because Brody was known as somebody who you just don't cross him. He was not one to be messed around with backstage, but you found a way to where you didn't have to. You were just completely honest with him, and because of that, you guys developed a good friendship. And I think it's wonderful that every year, you are able to hold that Memorial Battle Royal and that his widow is able to attend. And it just showcases the legacy he leaves. But also it goes back to my earlier point of just you keeping legacies alive of those who trailblazed the way in the wrestling industry.
Well, again, if everybody would, and I think you guys understand this, some of the workers out there today need to remember they are being allowed to build on the foundation that the people like Bruiser Brody and all the guys that we've named in the past, they built that foundation. Sam Muchnick was never a worker. Larry Matisek was never a worker. Herb Simmons, never a worker. I take my hat off to all those guys. I'm not taking those bumps. I'm chicken. But guess what? The thing that Sam Muchnick knew how to do, and Larry Matisek knew how to do, and Herb Simmons knows how to do, and some other promoters out there. You've got ACW, Pat the Searcher. You've got Scotty Z from New Breed Wrestling. They're trying to do the best they can. They're trying to run a good promotion based on their integrity and their honesty. I deal with all them. There for a long time, I get accused of not wanting to work with anybody. I worked with USA Championship Wrestling down in Tennessee before my good friend Bert Prentice passed away. Still working with KC, the gentleman who started up down there. Troy Peterson, Impact Pro Wrestling. Him and I work together. I work with anybody that wants to work to make this profession better because it's all a passion that we have. One thing we all have in common from the get-go, guess what that is? We grew up as fans. Some of these promotions that wake up now and say, I want to be in the business, they've got that feeling because they watch the modern stuff that's going on now. And if you're trying to compete with that, the AEW and all of these, you can't do it. Don't let your thoughts overspend you because that's what happens. I've got people saying, well, how can you afford to bring in 12, 14, 13 legends on a card? It's because I know what and again, I get these guys, I work deals with them. They know they're going to get more bookings in the future from me. It's a relationship that you build with them talents. I guarantee you there's not another promotion. I'm not bragging about that, but There's not another promotion in the Midwest that can put all this talent together. And I didn't do it all by myself. I got help doing it, but I got the help to get that done.
Wow.
Oh, for sure. And I think
I'm literally taking notes during this interview, just so you guys know. Herb, I love it, man. This is amazing for me. I feel like I'm sitting in class.
I'll help you anytime you want. You know that, Night Owl.
I know that, Herb, man. It's a beautiful thing. Oh, real quick before I forget, Maestro, you mentioned USA Championship Wrestling. Shout out to our boy Tom Simon, great ring announcer, great St. Louis guy, just an awesome guy that's been in the business a long time as well. I know he's not currently active, but we still love him. So shout out to Tom Simon. And I have a question before we get into the game show challenge, because things are about to get intense. I know you guys are both very friendly with each other, and it's always respectful, but I have to say this. I would love to see the young wrestling historian, the Maestro, versus the OG wrestling historian, Herb Simmons, in a little bit of a trivia challenge if you gentlemen are game.
Yeah, I got my guide somewhere. Hang on.
Cheat sheet.
Yeah, hang on. No, I got
Jeremy was born in the 90s, Herb. Take it easy on him, okay?
Hang on.
Hold on.
I got the cheat sheet right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the cheat sheet
I told you guys the story about that trophy hanging on the front page of that book, didn't I? Did I tell you that the last time I was in?
No, because I was about to go to that picture because we went through some of the pictures from the book with Ed Wheatley, and I believe he has that picture in his book as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
I love it.
That picture, if you got a minute, that story to that picture, that was
Of course.
on the cover of that book, but that was taken at the Fox Theater, the only show that was ever produced at the Fox Theater. Sam, Larry, and I did it, and we had brought Brody in town the night before that show, and he wanted to go to the theater to see what the setup was going to be. He was kind of amused on how we were going to have a professional wrestling ring on the stage of one of the most historical theaters in the country, the Fox Theater, where all the greats performed. So we show up over there, and as we walk in the front doors, you guys hopefully have been to the Fox before, but you walk in there, and as we're walking in, Sam makes the comment, says, "Larry, did you get the trophy picked up?" And immediately Larry and I, it's like we stepped in concrete, and it instantly encapsulated us. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and it was like, oh man. And Sam looked at us and said, "Oh, what's wrong?" And Larry says, "I forgot to order the trophy." And of course, Sam is, you had to know Sam. And it was like, this is the night before. Now, you're not going to go no place else and buy a trophy what we needed. And it was Brody that looked over next to the pillar in the middle of the Fox Theater lobby. That is actually an ashtray that was there. And Brody says, we'll use that tomorrow night. And that's where that picture come from. That was the ashtray in the lobby of the Fox Theater that we gave him as the trophy.
Wow.
I think Night Owl's.
Night Owl, you muted yourself, genius.
Okay, my mistake.
There you go.
No, what I was going to say is that's exactly why people tune into the show, for that sort of knowledge, that sort of information, and those sort of stories, man. And you know what?
You'll find those stories many places, I tell you.
No. But here's the thing. There was a question, and I was like trying to like riddle my brain and make sure I didn't forget. So here it is, and it's kind of personal. Herb, you're a blessed man for many, many reasons. You're a community leader. You're a respected promoter, a pillar of St. Louis professional wrestling. But you're also a husband. And I have to ask you for some personal advice here in front of, the relatively large pro wrestling community. And that is how you might want to write this down for when you get married, Maestro. Somehow Herb has managed to do the impossible, and that is balance married life with professional wrestling, something that I am striving to do, and it's not always a smooth road. Herb, what advice would you give to young promoters, podcasters, workers, announcers, referees, anybody in the pro wrestling business who has personal family relationships, particularly wives, that are also trying to be in the professional wrestling business, because I know pro wrestling can be all consuming. Talking about burning the candle at both ends like we did a little bit earlier, what advice could you bestow on a relatively young guy such as myself, a young guy such as the Maestro who may one day be married, on how to balance the wife and the life? How do you do that, Herb? Help us out.
Well, there's an old saying, happy wife, happy life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember two words, it will get you through all those hard times. And those two words are yes, dear.
Oh my gosh! Wow, got him! Got him!
Now,
you got me, Herb.
on a serious note, as I said at the beginning, my wife is having some medical issues, and but I would not want to do what I've done. We've been together 45 years.
Wow!
And she has been,
talk about accomplishments.
She has been the spark behind the knock, and I think any of the guys that's worked for us will tell you that she keeps it together. She has. She can put it in her terms. If it makes me happy, she's happy. She used to sit up and listen to the late night calls between Larry Matisek and I, to the point where, and Larry's wife will tell the story today that we end up, they go to bed. Hey, they're going to be on the phone for 3-4 hours. And then Brody, she'd sit there and hear us talking business, or the likes of Murdoch or Crusher Blackwell, people like that. And I really believe at one time she just said, I hate this. I hate it.
I've been there too, her.
but I tell you, she's at the shows. She helps with every month she takes charge of our reserve seats. And a good friend of mine, Scott Romer, photographer, just an all-around great guy, was out in Vegas, and I was asked to do a seminar out there, a promoter seminar, this couple of weeks back, and he talked about how, we put everybody that's got a reserve seat, they're on their seat when they come in, they know where they're sitting at. And my wife takes care of all of that, make sure all the paperwork's done, of course, make sure the boys all get taken care of. And I could not do what I've done without her. And I don't even want to think about that, because it's if you can keep the wife happy, like I said, happy wife, happy life, and make them feel a part of it, and it'll be good.
And Maestro, it's good to see you with your notebook over there. That's what you got to do, man, when you have the opportunity to talk to somebody that's living the dream. Hey, listen, Herb, I want you to know, now we always are very complimentary to each other because there's a lot of mutual respect, but I've always felt like if you can turn your passion into your career, you're the guy I'm listening to. And you and Ed have done exactly that. I mean, what was that?
That's how I was saying, that's the one thing I always tell people with I-70 Sports. For me, it's turning a passion into a profession.
Perfectly said, bro. I completely agree. And Herb, you've done that for over 40 years now. And not only have you done it because you love professional wrestling, but because you love the professional wrestling community, continue to contribute. And I love the fact that early on in this interview, you can speak from a point of authority when you're talking about some of the things that are happening in the professional wrestling world that some other folks may not realize. But, what that brings me to is this. You're a man who stands on principle and wisdom based on your experience. And I think that's going to serve you well in tonight's edition of the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Now, I know you've been Googling for cheat codes, Maestro, but we're not letting you get away with any shit. Okay, the book. Okay, good. That's it. You can use that. Because let me tell you what, the opportunity to go one-on-one with Herb Simmons in a trivia challenge is going to be like that final stage in Super Mario, that final Bowser that takes you kind of, you know what I mean? It takes a while to beat him.
Why he wanted me to do it and not
That's
him.
right. Because I knew if I went, I would have got smoked. I'm not afraid to admit it. It's like if Bruiser Brody stood in front of me, God rest his soul, and he's like, "You want to fight?" I'd be like, "Nah, bro. Here, take my lunch money. I'll eat later." You got to know what you're getting yourself into. You got to be a smart man. Well, anyway, gentlemen, let's go ahead and get into tonight's edition of the Wrestle Talk Game Show Challenge. Are you, Herb Simmons, Jeremy Karp, game?
Yes,
Ready as
sir.
I'm never going to be. Let's do this.
Let's do it, baby. Let's go ahead and cue up tonight's edition for 364 of the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's installment of the world-famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Tonight's contest is scheduled for the best 2 out of 3 falls. Tonight's contestants are Wrestle Talk Podcast and I-70 Sport Media's very own, the Maestro, Jeremy Karp, and, of course, the 2-time, maybe even more, Hall of Famer, SICW's very own, Herb Simmons. Gentlemen, in a few moments, I will ask you 3 questions about a professional wrestling topic. Whenever you think you know the answer, simply shout it out. In honor of tonight's guest, our Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge category is professional wrestlers from Illinois. I will give you information. Good luck, Maestro. I will give you information about 3 professional wrestlers that have lived in the state of Illinois. When you think you know who I'm talking about, please simply shout out your answer. The first person to score 2 falls in tonight's contest will be our winner. Mr. Simmons, Mr. Karp, do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I'm going to tap out.
All right, take it easy, buddy. We all have an opportunity here, okay? And I'm going to mix up the order of the questions just to keep everything honest. All right. Question number 1. This professional wrestler was born in Lake Forest, Illinois. Having attended many Cauliflower Alley events, this wrestler is a member of the NWA Hall of Fame and a former 5-time NWA heavyweight champion.
Harley Race? I don't know.
That is incorrect. Most recently, you can see him on WWE programming on screen alongside Sonya Deville. That is correct. Maestro, you have 1 point. The answer is Scrap Iron Adam Pearce. Question number 2. This late WWE Hall of Fame tag teamer is one of the most decorated tag team, or a member of one of the most decorated tag teams in professional wrestling history. Hailing from Chicago, Illinois, he was managed by Precious Paul Ellering. Name this tag team.
Laurinaitis. God damn it, what's his first name? No, not.
Name this tag team.
Okay, Legion of Doom.
The Legion of Doom is correct. Jeremy Karp, you are up 2-0. Incredible. Well done, but we're not done yet because question number 3 is worth double points. Hey, it's in the sheet. What do you want me to do? Okay, here we go. Question number 3. This late WWE Hall of Famer was born in Chicago, Illinois. He was an accomplished professional wrestler and manager. He managed the likes of Ray Stevens, Nick Bockwinkel.
The Grand Wizard.
That is incorrect.
Okay, but give me a credit for at least knowing that.
Well, it's the wrong answer. I can't give you credit. I apologize. I'm just doing my job. Okay. Rick Rude. He managed the likes of Ray Stevens, Nick Bockwinkel, Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Haku, appearing at SICW. Bobby Heenan is correct. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. Come on, baby. Give it to me.
You got it.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get it up.
Gotta finish it. Here we go.
Everybody hands go up.
And they said it. Jeremy Karp.
And they
this has got to be the greatest moment of your life, sir. Speech.
It has been an honor just to compete against the likes of Herb Simmons. In fact, if it wasn't for knowing Herb Simmons, I probably wouldn't have the wealth of knowledge that I have today. So
true. No, well, I'll tell you what, Herb. Thank you for being a good sport. More importantly, thank you for giving us some of your precious time to share not only the wealth of pro wrestling knowledge, but the appreciation that you have for everybody in the pro wrestling community, because you put over the fans just as much as you do the talent, Herb, and that's part of the reason that we love you so much. But most importantly, man, me and Jeremy and Skywalker and Big Sexy Chris Rodell and Hoss and everybody that's a part of the Wrestle Talk team, whenever your name comes up, everybody's faces light up, man. So thank you for just being kind of a guiding light for us younger guys here in the Midwest pro wrestling scene, man. We love you for that.
One last thing I want to say to you, because you are a very dear friend of mine for years now, and I can't wait to see you on October 30th. But all of us are thinking about your wife right now. We know she's ill, so we're sending all of our prayers and vibes out to you and your wife and family. Okay, Herb?
I appreciate that. And the only thing I'd like to throw out there, if you'll let me, is we've got another big show on October the 9th. Actually, October 7th. October the 7th, I'm doing a private show that's already sold out, and it hasn't been advertised. But all I can tell you is a legend that's there is a former NWA champion, and it's at a private show in downtown St. Louis, and that's on October the 7th. And I'll give you a hint, he was in town not too long ago. October the 9th, Too Cold Scorpio is in action at the Swansea Fire Department. This will be our 8th year that we're going there to help them raise funds. We raised them over 8 years about $40,000 for that local fire department. So it's always an honor to help out the men and women of the Swansea Fire Department. And he's going to be in action that night against the guy that was trained by Harley Race, Superstar Steve Fender. So that's
Superstar Steve.
So it's a great night.
Fantastic.
And just a little rundown on the rest of that October 30th. Sergeant Slaughter is going to be
Please
there.
do.
Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. will be in the house. Demolition will be there. Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South. We talked about Haku. Dr. D. David Schultz, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Jerry the King Lawler. The one thing that and I just want to announce, because I know you got a lot of people watching, the Nasty Boys are scheduled to be there, but there's been some illness with Brian, so we're still waiting that. But right now they're booked, but there's a possibility that they may be taken out, and I just want the fans to know that. And if we get that notification, then we will put it out there. But I think even with if we miss them, we still got one heck of a lineup that I think the fans are going to enjoy. Plus all the SICW greats, Flash Flanagan, one of the top
Cahagas
out there.
Cahagas making some noise. Ricky Cruz, the legends.
Gary Jackson, Big Texan, Rick Ruby. Rick Ruby is
of course
in our room, and Chris Hargis, and of course Travis the Crook Cook. Anywhere Travis is at, there's always double trouble, So, but I appreciate
for sure
inviting Ed and I on tonight. I'm excited about that Wrestling at the Chase book. Really excited about the film. We've already started production on that, and there's going to be a lot more of that coming. Talking about that in the near future.
Well, I absolutely love the information. I'll tell you what, as far as that coffee table book, I've got 2 unscripted books. We Americans, A Nation Challenge is September 11th. Coffee table book. That is definitely going to be the one that I'm going to grab next. And Herb, one way or another, the Wrestle Talk podcast is coming back to SICW. Let's talk off the board here a little bit later this week and see if we can work something together. Because last time, it was like red carpet treatment over there down with you beautiful folks in East Carondelet, Illinois. We love you, and we thank you so much for being a long time and loyal member of the Wrestle Talk family, man.
My honor.
Caps off.
My honor, and you guys are welcome anytime. If you need anything, let me know.
You got it, Maestro?
Wonderful. You just be well, Herb. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you soon. Okay, buddy?
Fine. Just send me my check, will you?
That's right. And next time, we want a rematch, because Herb Simmons deserves the rematch.
No, he won that fair and square.
Thank you. Renee just
does that
doesn't
mean
like
we
me.
can't? Wait. Does that mean we don't get a rematch? What does that have to do with the?
Yeah.
Renee just doesn't like me, Herb. It's okay.
I think last time I was on, I went against Renee and I won.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Herb. Have a good night. No. Love you, man. Dude, Herb freaking Simmons. Dude, I just want to see that happen again because I think Herb was maybe he had so much going on that he wasn't really able to lock in on the trivia challenge. But now that he's done it a couple of times, I think you guys should do that again, bro, because he smoked me. I mean, I'm going to just be honest. He destroyed me. But you, bro, you were on it. You were 4. Yeah, you scored 4, and he had 0. So that's amazing.
I can literally sleep tonight knowing that I swept Herb Simmons in a wrestling trivia challenge.
Boom, baby. That was good stuff.
Holy shit.
I loved it. That's almost like the Browns trying to beat the Chiefs. I mean,
I know.
You did what they couldn't.
Unlike the Chiefs, the Browns actually have won the past 2 weeks. So
yeah, and unlike the Browns, the Chiefs have actually won Super Bowls. So there's that.
Yeah, although look up the championships and see who has more. So
hey, if we count the AFL championships, the Chiefs have more than anybody. So remember that.
Do they though?
They do. I mean, it's like 4, but definitely more than Cleveland.
All right, folks. when we're off the air, this will be like a post game thing where
we'll
Renee,
be arguing about it.
Yeah, we're gonna be arguing about it, but I'm gonna prove to Renee why I'm right. But it's okay. He never likes me being right anyway. So it's okay.
All right. Well, you know what? The only reason we lost the last 2 weeks is because you guys stole Kareem Hunt from us because he likes to smoke too much lettuce. And if it wasn't for that, then we too much of the hippie lettuce. It was his fault and Cleveland's for stealing Kareem Hunt because he doesn't fumble the ball. And you don't even need him. You got Nick Chubb, man. You're pissing me off.
Yeah, because for the first time in 6 years, you guys are actually in last place, and you don't know what it's like. So you keep smoking on what you're smoking in the middle of the show, and I'll just keep enjoying my helmets.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what, Maestro, it's been a outstanding showing by both you and myself, but really the guests and the members of the Wrestle Talk family have been the stars of tonight's show. I just want to thank everybody for being here. I always look forward to Tuesday nights because I get to forget about all the other crazy stuff I got going on and just lock in to professional wrestling for 2+ hours. At this point, 2:22 going on 2:23. So thank you so much, Maestro, for joining me, bro. I loved everything that we were able to do tonight. And I hope that maybe next week, if your availability allows it, we can do it all over again, baby, for 365 as we continue to creep towards a record-setting 400. Bro, we're not that far from episode 400. I mean, we had ACH, we had Derek Stone, bro. We had some legends on for episode 300. Can you imagine what 400 is going to be like?
It is going to be star-studded, and it's been amazing. It's been this has been one of my favorite shows. I know I say that a lot every time I host it alongside you, but honestly, having Ed on, having Herb on, they're just fantastic, the two of them. I mean, you can, like I said, this is why Herb invited me over, where we would literally just, sit back, just go through all kinds of history and archives and stuff and just chill. That's the type of stuff I am excited.
Live for that stuff, man. Well, I'll tell you what I live for. We're doing the watch party at Kincaid for Survivor Series, and Wrestle Talk's going to be on the road for WWE Royal Rumble in the good old STL, baby. You know how we do. Everybody have a great night. Much love and respect to all of you, baby. WrestleTalkPodcast.com 24/7, i70sportsmedia.com or interstate70sportsmedia.com 24/7 if you can't get enough of these faces.
Wait a sec. Got 2 quick things. Number 1, it is actually interstate70sports.media. I bought the media domain, so they can't be taking that from me.
Media. I like it. Okay. I like that. That's new. I didn't know that.
No, you're good, buddy. I ain't letting no one take my shit. This is a team.
.media. Okay, got you.
.media. All right. And also, as always, folks, especially in the times that we live in, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. and be well and cherish each day. So have a
Grace
good night.
and peace,
folks.
everybody. Adios. We out.